What's up, guys? Skippy Africanus here, and today we have some relatively common, relatively cheap, actually, revolvers. And by the way, if you hear some loud bangs, my neighbor is currently building a house, so yeah, that explains the loud bangs. But anyway, we have right here are some Russian 1895 Nagant revolvers. Now, these revolvers, as mentioned, are very common and very cheap. I'm not sure what my brother paid for his, as this is his revolver, but I know for mine, I paid around 250 bucks for it, and this, mind you, was like a couple years ago, back when, like, you know, the whole COVID thing was going down and every single firearm in existence decided it wanted to be way more than it needed to be. I managed to pick this one up for 250, and also keep in mind I saw some floating for 600. But yeah, in general, they are around, you know, that cheaper price tag. Now, despite how common these things are, they are actually very unique when compared to other revolvers, though. Before we go into that, let's go into the actual history of these pistols. Now, despite the Russian manufacture of not only these, but pretty much all Nagant revolvers you will come across, the pistol is actually Belgian in origin and was designed by Leon Nagant and would be adopted by the Russians as a replacement to their Smith & Wesson No. 3 revolvers. Now, production for these pistols would begin in 1895 in Belgium and would be continued to be produced down there and sold by the Belgians to the Russians until 1898, when the Russians would purchase the manufacturing rights for the pistol, with production of the revolver being delegated to the Tula Arms plant. Now, the revolver would see its first major use in the Russo-Japanese War, and funny enough, due to the economic devastation inflicted upon Russia from this war, it would mean that the pistol, although outdated at the time, would be carried into the First World War, where it would serve valiantly as their main pistol. Now, this, of course, means that the pistol would also find its way into the Russian Revolution, given pretty much every gun in existence would find its way in the Russian Revolution. Now, post-Russian Revolution, they would actually make a big change to the handgun. You see, Nagant since 1895 came in two variants: the officer's model, which featured a single and double action trigger, and then another model which was made for the lower ranks, which featured only a single action trigger. Now, the Soviets would decide to completely drop the single action only variant and move towards only producing the ones capable of both single and double action trigger pulls. And then later on, in around 1930, they would also develop the Brommet suppressor for use with the Nagant revolvers, which you may be confused on how one could suppress a revolver, but we'll get into that just a little bit later. Now, do know that the suppressors would obviously see very limited use, as well tended to be the case with suppressors in World War II in general. Now, despite these changes and innovations for the pistol, the Soviets would begin to actively seek out a better replacement, and in 1930, the 7.62 by 25mm Tokarev cartridge would arrive on the scene, with its TT-30 pistol soon to follow. This, however, would not spell out imminent doom for the Nagant revolver, as though the Soviet Union wanted to replace the Nagant with the much more modern semi-automatics, the invasion by Germany in 1941 would slow down that process, meaning that the Nagant revolver would continue to be produced and serve in the Second World War, which it should be noted that these two examples are both World War II examples, with this one being a 1944 dated Tula-made revolver, and then this one on top being the much rarer 1945 dated Ishevsk. But yeah, these ones, Ishevsk only made them for about a couple of years. A little bit more rare than the Tula models. Now, post-World War II is where we would finally see the Nagant revolvers completely removed from Soviet service with the introduction of the Makarov pistol in 1951. Now, the Nagant, however, would continue to see service under police and security forces, with some very rural police units and certain security groups like those working in rail lines even using this pistol up into the late 90s. Now, it should also be noted that though the Soviet military would drop the revolver in 1951, it would still find its way in plenty of conflicts like, say, Korea or Vietnam. Now, aside from military and police use, the revolver would also become quite popular as a target pistol, funny enough, with plenty being decked out with stuff aimed towards, you know, pistol shooting competition. Now, do note, I'm not certain if that means that they also improve the trigger, as these things have some pretty heavy trigger pulls. Though I will say, call me crazy, but given the smooth recoil of, you know, the cartridge, and honestly, I think these handle very nice. Me, myself, I don't mind target shooting with them, so I imagine if they're making competition pistols, even if they didn't improve the trigger, you know, a lot of guys still like them. So now with all that out of the way, let's go into the actual pistol itself. And we'll start off with the holsters that these tend to be issued with. Pretty standard, and in fact, when you buy a Nagant revolver, they tend to come with, you know, holster and all that stuff. People just want to get rid of these things. But, yeah, typical paddle-style holster, which would close with that tab. And then you have on the side, you have the cleaning rod holder. And then right here, this is actually a pouch for the ammunition. So now these are 7-shot revolvers, and you'll have two areas divided by, you know, a little divider. The boxes of ammunition, which I'll grab in a second, come in 14-round boxes, so just one full box fits right in the pouch. Now, as far as the revolvers go, this is where it starts to get really old school with these, despite these being World War II made examples. As mentioned, it's typically, it's 7-shot revolver. They are gate loaders, so you have to flip that out, and then in order to eject each case, you have to actually, well, there's like the way you can do it on the gun. I will do a little side tangent. About, I think, a year ago, I tested out. My brother said he saw someone make a comment that one of his relatives was in the NKVD or something like that, and he said they would use the cleaning rod to kick the casings out. I did try that. It does work a lot better than what I'm going to show the official way. I also have heard, too, that you can press them out with your finger. Now, you might wonder why I wouldn't go the official way, which is right here. This is the ejector rod, and you'll see it's kind of a pain, but you rotate that, pull it out, move it to the side, and then each casing you would just kick out. Now, like I mentioned with the other two ways, those are, well, at least with the cleaning rod, it's a lot easier. Sometimes the casings will get stuck, and this one's just given where it is, especially if you've shot this thing a lot to the barrel, it's just a little bit of a pain. But anyways, going on with this actually leads us to taking out the cylinder. So now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Looks like you are. It'll over travel, but you'll see these two lines right there. And if you line those up, you then are able to pull this piece out, which in turn allows you to take the cylinder out. You kind of want to push this like a little bit, or push the cylinder a little forward to let you do that, but that's your removal of the cylinder for, your basic cleaning. Putting it back together, just as simple. Sometimes it gets, I personally find it to get a little bit finicky sometimes, but pretty simple when it comes to disassembly. There we go. So now with all that out of the way, let's get into what makes this revolver really weird and, well, one of a kind, really. And the best place to start off with that is with the ammunition. Now, the Russian just reads revolver cartridges, I remember right. Caliber 7.62 millimeter, 14 pieces. This is your standard, well, not military surplus. It's more actually correctly police/security surplus, because this ammo you'll find was made in around 1978, well after the Army had stopped using the pistol. Just a little neat side tangent. We did do a video on this caliber specifically too, if you want to check that out. But anyways, going into the cartridge, you will notice that they are very weird looking. Dare I say, one of a kind. Aside from shotgun slugs, I can't think of another round that looks like this. And this cartridge was designed this way for a very specific reason. So when I take this revolver and I cock the hammer, you'll notice two things. You'll notice that the cylinder rotates, and then at a certain point, it gets pushed forward. Now you will notice, and by the way, these are empty casings. I just loaded them for demonstration. They're not live munitions, but you will notice that the casing actually sticks out just a tiny bit past the cylinder, and you can see that there's like little indents. Kind of hard to, okay, I think you guys, yeah. You can see those little indents right there, and when the cylinder is pushed forward, that means that the brass is actually going to stick in a little bit inside of that forcing cone, which when fired, we'll just take this cartridge right here for example, when fired, that taper is going to expand outwards, effectively sealing the system, and this actually saves you around 75 feet per second in velocity, versus should the gases be allowed to, just blow out like on a normal revolver. This also is the reason why this revolver can be suppressed. Now, there are actually two other revolvers that do this. The Pieper 1912, I know it says Pieper, it's I think another Belgian-made revolver, and the Steyr 1893, which I believe never left prototype. But as far as mainstay revolvers go, though, this really is the only one that does this. But anyways, I think that's going to do it for this video on the Nagant Revolvers. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I personally enjoyed making it, and I will see you all next time.